I'll bring the Butte-Silver Bow Council of Commissioners Committee of the Whole meeting to order for Wednesday, March 11th, 2026. Can we please have a roll call, please?
1 presiding, 10 present, 1 absent.
Please let the record reflect that Commissioner Shea is excused for tonight. Commissioner Walker, would you please lead us in the prayer and the pledge? Next item on tonight's agenda is any public comment on any items that's on the agenda. If there's a member of the public that would like to speak on any item that's on the agenda, now would be your opportunity. Okay, seeing none, I'm going to move on to the report of the chair. I just wanted to talk to the commissioners about an email that we received yesterday at 3:10 from Cindy Sherman regarding the primary elections. Because of the MCA laws, there's the possibility of canceling the primary elections on the local side for the races that are either not contested or only have 2 candidates involved. So they would automatically move on to the general election. And I'd be interested to see what this body, or how this body feels about it. We do have a window that we could correct it and require that there be a primary election held if we have a resolution in place by Friday evening, and that would require us to have a special meeting on Friday. And so something for the commissioners to think about, to let us know. I can work with Chief Executive Gallagher on getting a special meeting established. We would just have to make sure that we have a quorum for it. Ms. Sherman will be here tonight to speak on behalf of it on any items that's not on tonight's agenda. Just keep in mind that we won't be able to have any dialogue back and forth, but I want the commissioners to be aware of that, so that's why I'm giving it in my report of the chair. Next item on tonight's agenda is Section 1, bid openings, public hearings, and/or presentations. We do have one presentation tonight. We have Communication 2026-106, Zach Osborne, Fire Services Director, requesting Council of Commissioners permission to schedule a presentation on March 11th, 2026 regarding the future inclusion of the Montana Connections area into the urban fire district. Fire Services Director Osborne, floor is yours.
Okay, good evening. Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. Just to start off, for the record, Zach Osborne, Director of Fire Services. So this, as some of you guys remember, this started last year when we attempted to make this adjustment. We ran into some timing issues, knew that we had basically to start over, and now we're starting over. But before we jump right into what our plan is, tonight's presentation is just giving a history background of Montana Connections and how we treat it towards the fire fund. I'm fortunate enough to bring a couple guests with me. A few slides have to do with the history of Montana Connections that Danette will cover for me. She is very knowledgeable, as you guys know, in the history of this, as well as Finance Director Karen Hassler is in the back that said she'd be willing to come up and answer any finance questions when I'm done. So we'll start, and now Danette's going to talk for about 4 or 5 slides.
Ms. Gleason.
For the record, my name is Danette Gleason. My address is 8735 US Highway 10, Like Zach had mentioned, I worked here at the local government for many, many years and have the history and the knowledge of the creation of the district and kind of how the fire districts were established. Going back in time to 1994 and a little before, so nobody gets to comment on my age here, but anyways, it's actually a pleasure to come and talk to all of you again tonight. Like Zach had told me before we kind of talked about what I would present to you, is he gave me some ideas of some questions that he had faced the last time he presented to you, as well as some recent questions. So I just want to start by saying you're going to find out in these slides a lot happened between the time frame of 1994 and 1998. There was a lot going on in that time frame. Actually, you could run back to 1992. And in 1992, everybody's aware the water division was getting taken over by the local government. And in those transactions as well was the transfer of the Silver Lake water system to Butte-Silver Bow. And all the result of that transfer and all the happenings that were going on, we were able to create a tax increment financing district called the Ramsey-Tiffin District Number 2, south of town here, and start to attract manufacturing and industry, and therefore needed a lot of different local government services. So that included what were we going to do to add fire services. You're bringing whole new manufacturing to town. It required a lot of different type of fire services. How were we going to support not only the district as it expanded, but current to that time ASME, now known as REC. So I think you're also going to see that a lot happened. We had some significant thought by our former leadership at that time. Going back to those days, we had some transitions of chief executives. So we had Chief Executive Don Peoples working on this, former Chief Executive Dave Fisher, former Chief Executive Jack Lynch. We had the 1994 Study Commission, and then, of course, the Council of Commissioners all working together to try to resolve what we were going to do with the TIFID, what we were going to do with fire services, how were we going to handle what was currently needed at that time, and what were the avenues to make changes for the community and growth in industry as we move forward. So if we look at the slides up there, and I put a lot of information on these slides. Hopefully Zach can share this presentation with you, and if you ever have to reference back to looking at old resolutions and all that, they're there. I'm just not going to talk about a lot of it. But the district, again, was created May 20th, 1994. It was expanded under Ordinance 546 in 95 to take into the property that ASME was to be located on, now REC. Again, I had mentioned during this whole time period, the Study Commission of 1994 was working. They were doing a lot of different charter amendments at that time. A lot of them were focused on fire services, and then also brought forth, just as the Study Commission is meeting today, they were bringing people in, asking them, what do we need? And of course, at that time, the former Fire Service Director, Barb Armstrong, was bringing up this new whole TIFID being expanded and how he was going to serve that. And also you're going to see the expansion of the Uniform Fire District. So a lot was going on at that time. And then on June 4th of 1996, the voters approved these recommendations to the charter, eventually creating Article 7 and amending Article 7, Section 703G1 and 703G2. Some of these handouts were put on your desk tonight, just snapshots of the charters and the municipal code that I'm going to talk about. So what really happened here in these amendments, the main goal was to change the 1976 Uniform Fire District boundaries. So the original fire district boundaries of 76, again, this is all my recollection of everything and how we operated when I was here, but the boundary was more down to just about Row Road area, picking up some of it from Front to Row Road, a little bit a weird shot there. Kind of now where we know Elizabeth Warren shooting a little bit over there, grabbing a little bit of the country club and coming up Continental. So 1976, and then transitioned over to the consolidated government in 77, we had a pretty small fire district. And then all this stuff was happening in 94. We had growth going south of town to serve. We had the new district forming. And so then Fire District Armstrong was looking at, needing additional staffing, additional equipment, and trying to grow his department. So these amendments to the charter also helped with that. So what happened was the expansion again. So we expanded, you want to go Okay. We expanded to section 703G1 of the charter. So that was enacted by Ordinance 571 on November 20th, 1996, and then codified in section 2.16020B of the municipal code. And what it did was establish different boundaries. So the Uniform Fire District, the main, what we call sometimes urban fire district, I hear it called that a lot, that was expanded south. So that moved everything more south and southern, and that's the borders, and that's what you see in 2.1602B. You see those boundaries in that section of code, and that's expanding just the Uniform Fire District south. As we all know, when we're working through, and you will learn a lot more about this now that we have the study commission enacted and a lot of amendments going to be coming before you in the future, most likely, it takes a little time to implement these. So it took a couple years, and March 18, 1998, a resolution was presented to council, Resolution 98-12. That resolution was to bring a vote to the public. It gave the language of the ballot measure to vote to the public to create what we called back then a 10 mil emergency service fire district. This was a result of a communication that Fire Service Director Barb Armstrong was he was directed by former chief executive, and then at that time the Council of Commissioners, to bring back to them what did it look like to establish fire services outside the boundaries of the Uniform Fire District. So that was the other amendment that was brought forward and voted on by the 1994 Study Commission, and then codified in 703G2, and that talks about how we serve outside of the Uniform Fire Districts. So those rural areas, Browns Gulch, the Tiffin, the areas, I always say this, and it's not exact, but if you go south, it's pretty much the urban fire district goes where Highway 2 and Continental Drive intersect. There's a few houses up on the hill up that it grabs when you're going up the highway to going south, going towards Roosevelt Drive, but Roosevelt Drive's not in the fire district. So there's, so that's kind of what the first code did, the 7.03G1, but now 7.03G2, that the amendments that needed to take place by the study commission at that time was to figure out and resolve something for emergency and fire protection outside of that. Again, knowing we were expanding greatly, especially with the Tiffin number 2. So that vote of the public went out, and it was passed on June 2nd, 1998, to create a county-wide 10 mil fire district for everybody excluding Walkerville. So Walkerville is not in any of our fire districts, the Emergency Service Fire District or the main urban fire district that we call, or the Uniform Fire District that we call today. Want to advance that? Further, Council Bill 98-3 approved the 7.03G2, like we just discussed, creating the 10 mil fire district, or finding a means to levy. It was a way of a means to levy taxes on those areas outside the Uniform Fire District. Also, it allowed, which is another key important topic, is that it allowed to change boundaries in the fire districts, in both of the districts, by 2/3 council vote on ordinance changes, as long as you held the correct public hearing process at the time. So as of today, we can come before you, or there can be requests before you to change the boundaries of those districts by 703G2 and just change the ordinances that are in 2.1602, I think it is. I'm looking at Sean to shake his head. I'm right or wrong here. But that's the main focus. That's kind of how that was laid out. That was laid out way before we were all sitting here today. It was laid out, in early discussions about how do we do growth. So today we know we may only need 10 mills out there in the outlying districts, and that might support fire services. But then what do we do next to grow fire services in the future? And that was the intent, was to move it to the ordinances, so you don't have to wait 10 years for a study commission, or you don't have to go through charter changes, but you can go through ordinance actions and take the ordinance process to change the district boundaries. The other important thing that was brought about on these amendments that was allowed was also to enter into, the TIFID board could enter into an interlocal agreement with Butte-Silver upon council approval for agreements to provide additional service to the TIFID. So everything was going along really, really well. I don't know the exact content of what happened. I was here till March of 2007. I left and came back in May 2014. But in 2012, it was described to me when I returned that there was a need for a lot of equipment, and the budgets, the fire service budgets, the emergency service, and the uniform fire district budget cannot support buying all this equipment that was needed, whether it was SCBAs, it was turnout gear, whatever was needed to support the fire department. It just didn't have the budget authority. They just didn't have. They were hitting their cap, and Karen can talk a lot more about 1510, 420, and the budget caps that are in place right now. But they were running up against caps, and they needed more equipment. So what happened June 12th of 2012, the local government and the TIFID board entered into a contract to support the fire services. And annually, about the time in the initial years, there was around $214,000 that was generated. I can tell you in 2014, when I came back, this number decreased significantly. REC had a market decline in their value, and Department of Revenue dropped their value. So this number quickly went from 214 down to about 100 and some thousand. And then over time, as personal property depreciates, it goes down and down. So the amount that was available in the district was always floating around 100,000 or a little bit less annually. This contract was set to sunset June 30th of 2022. It was renegotiated. Actually, nothing really changed in the contract in 2016. The 18 mills remained the same. The scope of work remained the same. We just requested that it come back before council to make it clear, because there was a lot of confusion about this, to make it clear that this contract sunset on June 30th, 2022, when the TIFID sunset. And, again, there are a lot of misconceptions about this contract. I'll give you a little bit on what I used to have to respond to was, everybody thought it was tied to the mills. They thought it was actually a position in the mill levy, and it was not. It's a contract. It was nothing different than an engineering contract. My example would be my accounting contract. It was nothing different than a contract. It had a 90-day termination clause by either party. It was just strictly a contract and never guaranteed to continue on past June 30th, 2022. But however, it's still in the charter and the code that they can enter into, the TIFID can enter into future contracts. I think, tying it to taxes, I think the 18 mil was the issue. I think people thought that just meant 18 mils went on forever, as long as there was people out there in that area paying taxes. And so I think that was a misconception, what could definitely be. I definitely understand that, but it was clearly a contract, an interlocal agreement between the entities. So kind of brought you up to 2022. I think, like Zach said, we'll answer a lot of questions at the end, but I'll turn it over to Zach. Sorry, I have all this paperwork here.
Okay. Thanks again, Danette, for giving a good history there. So, June of 2022, now to currently. So, since June 2022, the Butte-Silver Fire Department has experienced a significant financial impact within the Urban Fire Fund. Expenses for equipment training that were previously covered through the TIFID agreement now must be absorbed by the Fire Fund. While we anticipated the sunset of the contract, the financial strain became fully apparent in 2024 when our budget reached its cap. And as a result, we were forced to implement immediate budget cuts and reductions to remain within our financial limits. And this situation brings us to the purpose of today's presentation. So expanding the urban fire district to include Montana connections. So the purpose of this presentation is initiating the process of ordinance change to include the Montana Connections area into the Urban Fire Protection District. Establish equitable funding across all protective areas. Ensure long-term sustainability of fire protection services and adapt with the growth of Montana Connections. And there's no map. Okay. I can pass out. You guys can pass it once you look, if you would. Yeah, pass it around. So when you get that and it gets passed around, and I apologize, the map is a little small, but you will see in the white boundary is the Urban Fire District boundary. You'll see off to the west in blue. No. You'll see in blue, and that is the Montana Connections Park boundary. And you'll understand what I mean when you all see it. So, current funding structure. So within Butte-Silver, all residents and property owners contribute to the Emergency Service Tax Fund. Again, that's all residents in Butte-Silver, except for Walkerville. Only residents and property owners within the boundaries of the urban fire boundary contribute to the urban fire tax in the white. So Montana Connections, they contribute to the Emergency Service Tax Fund. They do not contribute to the Urban Fire Tax Fund. So what is the Emergency Service Tax Fund? The Emergency Tax Fund generates about $1.2 million annually for our budget. It provides a dedicated funding source that supports payroll expenses for 9 career fire personnel within Butte-Silver Fire Department. It is important to clarify that this fund is restricted solely to salary and associated payroll costs to those 9 positions. No revenue from the Emergency Tax Fund is allocated towards operational expenses. No funds are used for training, equipment, apparatus, facility maintenance, or capital improvements. The remaining 30 career fire personnel receive no salary or operational support from this fund. So the Urban Fire Tax Fund. Urban Fire Tax generates about $5.6 million for our budget. It serves as the primary funding source for the Butte-Silver Fire Department and supports the majority of the department's overall operating budget. Wages and benefits for the remaining 30 career fire personnel, all operating expenses, and that's training, EMS, fire, hazmat, technical rescue, all equipment, so PPE, medical supplies, radios, tools, hose, etc. Apparatus, maintenance, fuel, insurance, replacement, building maintenance, improvements, and capital, short-term, long-term capital improvements. So including Montana Connections into our fire tax and why we think this matters. Equity and fairness. Montana Connections benefits from fire protection services. Other residents and commercial property owners are currently subsidizing fire protection coverage in that area, and equal service area should mean equal participation in funding. Service demand and risk. Growth and development in Montana Connections area, increased infrastructure density and commercial exposure. Our fire risk does not stop at district lines, and long-term sustainability requires balanced cost distribution. And another one is financial stability. It is expanding the tax base, helps maintain staffing levels, helps maintain our training, supports our equipment, and stabilizes future levy pressures. And it reduces a disappropriate burden on current urban taxpayers. So what inclusion would mean? If it was adopted, Montana Connections would continue to contribute to the Emergency Service Fund and begin contributing to the Urban Fire Tax Fund. Property owners would receive full equality in district structure and long-term service planning. And what does it not mean? No change in our emergency response model. We are still sending vehicles out there. No reduction in current service levels elsewhere, and no special assessment beyond standard district participation. So what is the financial impact if we include them? If this plan was to be successful and Montana Connections were incorporated into the Fire Tax Fund service area, the fire department estimates an annual revenue increase of approximately $300 to $350 to the fire fund. And those implications, an increase of roughly that per year would strengthen long-term staffing sustainability, support operational expenses currently absorbed by the Urban Tax Fund, improve equipment replacement and capital planning stability, enhance emergency response capacity in a high-risk industrial area, and provide increased hazard prevention measures. So, what possible strategic ways could we use this additional revenue? Possible. We could possibly add an assistant chief of training and operations. And what that person would do is oversight of department-wide training standards, industrial and hazmat preparedness coordination, operational readiness and compliance, succession planning and officer development, incident command standardization. So, the Montana Connections Park is a very high-risk, low-frequency area. Historically, this area has experienced relatively few major emergency incidents. However, the potential risk remains extremely high. Montana Connections represents the community's greatest concentration of industrial and hazardous materials risks, making it the most likely source of a high-risk, low-frequency event. These events are among the most dangerous types of emergencies faced by our fire department. High-risk, low-frequency event incidents are characterized by rare and often unpredictable events that can have catastrophic consequences. Examples include technical rescues, train derailments, a large hazardous material release. While these incidents occur infrequently, they carry the greatest potential for service consequences to both the public and responding firefighters. Industrial environments require a high level of specialized knowledge, training, and operational readiness. Many companies within Montana Connections have multiple hazards located on the same property, increasing the complexity and potential impact of an emergency incident. Because of this elevated risk, a higher level of preparedness is essential. So funding this position would support expanding training opportunities in these specialized disciplines, including hazardous material response, technical rescue, and industrial emergency operations. A portion of this training would involve direct coordination with Montana Connections companies to better understand site-specific hazards and response procedures. The fire department currently conducts more than 10,000 hours of annual training, with over 2,000 hours dedicated specifically towards hazardous material response and technical rescue preparedness, related to those high-frequency, high-risk, low-frequency incidents. Continued investment in specialized training is critical to maintaining operational readiness for those complex emergencies. And an assistant chief of training and operations position would play a key role in coordinating, developing, and overseeing training programs and operational readiness for these high-risk, low-frequency events. This position will ensure that personnel are properly trained, equipped, and prepared to respond effectively to complex and potentially catastrophic events. Ultimately, this position directly supports safe and effective emergency response capabilities, not only for Montana Connections, but for the entire Butte-Silver Bow community. I've went over a couple of these already many times, but our staff operations to protect this area requires or must maintain an advanced hazardous material capabilities and training, technical rescue capabilities and training, industrial and complex fire response readiness capabilities and training, specialized and advanced response equipment, and adequate staffing to meet elevated risk demands. Another possible strategic use of this additional revenue could possibly be a deputy fire marshal. Increased industrial inspections, hazardous material code enforcement, fire prevention and risk mitigation, pre-incident planning in those high-risk occupancies, plan reviews and compliance oversight, and to assist our fire marshal with the growth of Butte-Silver Bow. Prevention and risk reduction. In high-risk industrial environments, strong emergency prevention measures significantly reduce the potential for catastrophic incidents. Strengthening prevention capacity is both fiscally responsible and essential for reducing long-term liability for our community. Currently, the Fire Prevention Bureau for Butte-Silver Bow operates with only one dedicated staff member. Assistant Chief Fire Marshal Kelly Lee spends hundreds of hours alone, annually conducting inspections, plan reviews, and consultations related to Montana Connections. This workload represents a significant responsibility for a single person. Adding a dedicated assistant to our fire marshal would greatly enhance the department's ability to conduct inspections, plan reviews, and maintain proactive engagement with high-risk facilities. Expanding our prevention capacity would strengthen community safety, improve regulatory compliance, and reduce the likelihood of those large-scale incidents. So our fire prevention marshal's office must inspect to protect hazardous material storage, tank system, flammable and combustible liquids, plan reviews and inspections for all construction, plan reviews and inspections for all fire alarms and sprinkler systems. Again, he spent well over 100 hours just on Montana Connections alone last year. Another possible use of this revenue would be structural budget stabilization. Provide operational flexibility, offset ongoing budget pressures, assist in bringing the fire fund back under the levy cap compliance, reduce reliance on temporary budget balancing measures, and create a financial buffer for our unavoidable costs, which we have daily. We have fire trucks that every piece and part seems like break weekly, and you never know what the price of those parts are going to be. Fiscal sustainability. In recent years, the fire fund has met levy cap limits, creating ongoing pressure on the department's operating budget. This structural adjustment is intended to help restore long-term fiscal sustainability and bring the fire fund back into alignment with levy limitations. Additional funding will provide the department with a greater flexibility to strategically plan for necessary upgrades, capital improvements, and operational enhancements. This approach allows the department to address current needs while also preparing for the future demands of fire protection and emergency services within our community. And I won't go over the last 4 slides in completion, but a couple of them are just our main hazards. So REC has silicon gas reactors, multiple buildings, fire pumps, town pump, almost 2 million gallons of diesel, a 500,000 gallon tank of ethanol, 500,000 gallon tank of unleaded. We have all these major industrial businesses out there that carry very specific risks. Port of Montana, over 150,000 square feet of building space. Wausau, over 200,000 square feet of building space. So I will send you this presentation, PowerPoint, for you guys to have. That's all I have for tonight. I am open for questions that you guys might have for me.
Thank you, Mr. Osborne. I have a couple questions just about the kind of the process going forward. Being that you're giving a presentation tonight, I would assume at some point a resolution would be introduced to this body to take action on. Will that be in the next coming weeks, months? What's your plan there?
Yeah, Chair Morgan, correct. It'll be sent in this Friday and be on agenda for next week.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. Thank you, Director Osborne. I feel like I kind of have a couple different questions. I don't, maybe Danette can answer them, maybe you can answer them, maybe Director Hassler can answer them. But to start, that 1510-420, that's the cap. How I understand it is that that's obviously set by statute. Firstly, can you just talk to us about, or Director Hassler maybe, about what exactly happens when we meet that cap? And then when we collect, if this was to pass, we collect the $300,000 to $350,000 extra. My understanding is you wouldn't want to spend all of that right away, correct? Okay, so firstly, Dr. Hassler, first question, could you just touch on maybe what the cap, talk about that a little bit?
Director Hassler.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan, Commissioner Thatcher, members of council. 1510-420 is Montana Code annotated Title 15, Chapter 10, Section 4, that sets the limit on the number of mills that can be levied according to the taxable value for the district. And so for this particular fund, it's based on the taxable value of the properties that are in the urban fire boundary. And I think the next part of your question is what happens if you exceed the. Yeah. So a couple of years ago, it wasn't fiscal year 26, but fiscal year 25, when we got the budget requests, compiled everybody's budgets together. We have a spreadsheet called the resource and requirement that takes into consideration the budget appropriation, accounts payable, other, and a reserve fund, the 16% reserve fund that council has requested the Butte-Silver have as a reserve in case of emergency. And then you look at resources to help offset that appropriation. So you have the cash that's in the bank, receivables that are coming in, and other sources of revenue, which could be grant funds. They could be, in some cases, they have their wildland fire protection. When they go out and they're deployed on wildland fires, they receive revenue. So we balance it all out, and then we determine how many mills are required to balance the budget. And they were over the number of mills that they had available. And so at that point, you have to cut the budget to come into compliance with 1510-420. You can't levy more mills than you have the ability to per the calculation. And that is all determined. This calculation comes from the state of Montana. You enter the number of tax dollars that were appropriated or levied the prior year, the taxable value of the district. You back off the TIF or the TEDS or the URA, those increment dollars, and then you back off newly taxable property, and it calculates the number of mills that you have available. If you levy under the maximum, you do have the ability to carry forward those mills into subsequent years, but in that year, it took all of the mills that they had the ability to levy, plus any carry forward. So it required their budget to be cut to fall within the calculation from 1510 420.
Follow-up, Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. Thank you, Director Hassler. You've explained that a couple times. I just want to make sure I was fully understanding it. The next thing, I have one question and then a follow-up to this, but Ms. Gleason stated that the TIFID used to be in an agreement, or used to have the agreement with the 10 mil, however that was, whatever that statement was. But is there, and that sunsetted when the TIF district sunsetted. So, A, why can't we, why wouldn't we, I guess would be a thing, have that same agreement in place now? Or is that because there's not enough money in the district as it is right now to be worthwhile to the fire district? Is that how I understand it correctly?
Director Gleason. Jeez, I'm going back. Director Hassler.
Sure.
Sorry
Thank you.
about that.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan, Commissioner Thatcher, members of council. When the new Montana Connections Park was created in 2024, the base value was significantly more than what the TIFID base value was, because it incorporated all of the improvements in the businesses that were in place on when that district was established. And until they either have more industry move in or significant investment that increases their taxable value, that district will not generate enough revenue in increment dollars to support an agreement for 18 mills or however many mills to the fire department.
Follow-up, Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Dr. Hassler. That's what I thought. I just want to make sure. The last question, and I don't know if this is maybe like an elephant in the room or something, but I guess if we're going to talk about equity and fairness and do all of those things, I guess I'd just like to know the reasoning why we wouldn't expand the entire thing at once, not just to the connections, but if you're at the top of Beef Trail, you're not paying. If you're at Roosevelt Drive, like former Dr. Gleason stated, you're not paying into that, the fire district, the urban fire district. You're paying the emergency services, but you're not paying the urban fire fund. So I guess my question is, why would we do this process again? Maybe not. I mean, in my mind, if you have to go fight a fire up at Roosevelt Drive or at the top of Beef Trail, you're gonna use more resources than you would coming to fight a fire at my house on Moulton. I pay that, but those people in that district don't. So I guess, are we going to going to have to do this whole process again if you so choose to expand to those districts, or why would we not just do this all at once?
Director Osborne.
Mr. Chair Morgan, Commissioner, great question. That was a topic of discussion many times that we've had in the last 2-3 years. The best way I suppose that I can explain is, well, let me go back. You are 100% correct. If there was a fire outside of our urban fire district, they would get probably 2 to 3 times the amount of resources as your house would on first alarm. So you're spot on. In this charter change, we wanted to take what we felt was the most dangerous risk that we had in our county, the most time that our fire marshal was spending, the certain percentage of our training hours, total training hours, were dedicated towards hazmat, industrial fires, technical rescue, railroad, decks, semi-trucks, and that's where we felt what was most necessary. But yes, will we have to do this again? One step at a time, I maybe, and we'll see how this plays out first, but I can't disagree with you.
Director Hassler, do you have a follow-up?
Sure, thank you, Commissioner Morgan, members of council. Also, want to mention that we also have some outlying areas that already have fire districts that cover their area. So we have Wise River and Divide, and then, where's the other one? The Melrose. So they already have existing fire districts. So, I mean, to include them in a countywide district when they already are taxing their residents for a service that is provided for their area.
Sure. Commissioner Thatcher, I'll go back to you in just a second. I'm going to give another opportunity to another commissioner. Commissioner O'Leary, and then Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman Morgan. Thank you, Director Osborne, for the presentation. Much appreciated. I guess I'm just going to kind of piggyback off of what Commissioner Thatcher was just saying. You know, earlier in the presentation, it was mentioned that Walkerville does not pay in to this. You know, they pay the emergency services, but they don't pay the fire fund. And you know, I guess in some ways, I kind of wonder if it makes sense, or if there's a way. Maybe you can tell us if there's a way that we could restructure everything so that it's people are paying based on the response time or something like that. It just makes, I get what the point of this is, but it would be interesting to explore that if it's a possibility, but I would like somebody's opinion.
Chief Executive Gallagher, do you have a response?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman Morgan. Commissioner O'Leary, we are not able to do that because Walkerville is an incorporated community, so they have the right to tax there, and so they are separate. And when we consolidated, they stayed separate, so we do not have the ability to go in and dictate that.
Director Osborne, do you have a? Commissioner O'Leary, do you have another question? Go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. That's interesting. Do we have some kind of agreement with Walkerville for fire services, or how does, I mean, obviously they pay the emergency services, but do we have a similar type of agreement with them? Because I'm sure we respond to their fires just like we do anywhere else in the city county.
Director Osborne? There you go.
Chair and Commissioner O'Leary. Yes, in our response plan, it's fully built that Butte-Silver vehicles, fire apparatus respond into Walkerville at certain incidents, fires, any kind of power line down, tree down, medical emergencies, everything that they would call, we would go to.
Director Osborne, I could be wrong, but I thought there was a mutual aid agreement with the city of Walkerville for that. Is that true?
Yeah, Chair Morgan, that is just built into our response plan. It's
Okay.
it's just an agreement with the response plan that we would respond.
Okay. Follow-up, Commissioner O'Leary.
Thank you, Chair Morgan. So there's no money changing hands between the city of Walkerville and Butte-Silver. Okay. So then I guess I have a slightly different question. There was, last year you were here with the folks that did the fire study, and I'm wondering if you could just discuss a little bit around how the recommendations that you were making tonight interplay with those recommendations from that fire study.
Director Osborne.
Chair, Commissioner Larry, yeah, perfect. I'm glad you asked. If you remember, they gave us those recommendations that they have, and this would be hitting, or my 3 possibilities that I gave as possibilities would hit every one of their recommendations. Find more funding, fill an assistant chief training position, and add somebody to our fire prevention bureau. We've been getting by with what we have. We could do a lot better with this, and the study on those types of personnel were spot on, and I agreed 100%.
Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chair. Excuse me. Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Director Osborne. Has this presentation been presented to any of the businesses in the TIF or the Montana Connections?
Director Osborne.
Chair, Commissioner Fisher, thanks for asking. I was going to make sure that we did this presentation first, and I'll let you guys know first. My next plan was to try to set up a meeting with the Montana Connections Advisory Board and possibly give them a similar presentation, sit down and talk with them.
Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Director Osborne. Do we have any idea what the amount of taxes will be spread amongst the businesses in Montana Connections? I know out there's a lot of business we lured in, with through years ago, we lured them in to this district, and now times are tough throughout business in America, as everyone knows. It's really tough out there in business. And do we have any idea what it'll cost a company like REC per year, or any of the others you mentioned? Do we have any idea, dollar-wise, what it's going to cost any of these companies?
Director Osborne.
Chair, Commissioner Fisher, the Department of Revenue just gave us their estimated value of $300,000 to $320,000 or $350,000 annually. They didn't separate that from businesses. That's it would be, of course, a tax based on their taxable value of the property. So fully understand that some of them will have a pretty substantial tax, but I don't know exactly which businesses would be taxed what.
Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you. Excuse me. I wonder if Director Hassler or Ms. Gleason had any idea what the effect would be on a business like REC. I mean, they're a major employer out there, and I'd hate to see them get taxed out of business.
Director Hassler.
Sure. Thank you, Commissioner Morgan, or Chairman Morgan, Commissioner Fisher, members of council. At one time last year, we had kind of preliminarily had the taxable values before we received updated certified and taxable values in August. And the revenue generated was even more because, we have seen some decline in the taxable values out there just due to depreciation. I wouldn't even venture to guess. I don't want to, stand up here and say it would be this much, but that's something that we can get to everybody. We can get the taxable values that are currently out on our tax-wise system, and we can get those and send them to everybody. I don't want to tell anybody something that isn't true.
Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. Commissioner Fisher, I was kind of wondering the same thing because I would imagine that it would probably be substantial or certainly different between all the properties out there. I guess my only thing with that is Montana Resources pays this. Like major players here in town pay this fund, this tax. They pay into the urban fire. They pay into emergency services. And so I guess where I'm at still, and it's going to go back to the equity and fairness, is if Montana Resources has to pay it, they're a risky industry. I feel like everybody else should have to pay it, but I'm going to go as far as to say that I still firmly believe that everybody within the district should pay it, property homeowners, industry owners, and all of that. I do have a question though. Director Hassler, you touched on how Butte-Silver has their own district, they pay their own fund. When I was doing some research on this, I was just looking up property owners up in Roosevelt Drive, and for example, I pay $150 roughly on the urban fire district, $30.56 in emergency services on my tax bill. There's a property owner in Roosevelt Drive that pays $65.50 in emergency, $0 on the urban fire, obviously, but they pay a forest fire special assessment. Is that something that you're talking about with the Butte-Silver district, or are we moving away from that? We would still tax on that specific property, or we would not, based on what you said about the Butte-Silver district?
Director Hassler.
Chairman Morgan, Commissioner Thatcher, members of council, that forest fire is an assessment that comes from the state of Montana, and it has nothing to do with Silver Bow County. It's a special assessment. So if there were a county-wide, if the boundary was expanded to include countywide, I believe they would pay the urban fire, they would pay emergency services, and then this fee that's assessed by the state of Montana has nothing to do. They would continue to assess that fee as well.
Commissioner Thatcher, I'll have to scratch or shake the dust out of my head, but back in the day, there was a time where we as commissioners went and visited the Wise River Fire Department because they weren't receiving any funding direct from either Beaverhead County or Butte-Silver Bow. They were basically, from my memory, they were funding the fire district based off of bake sales. And at that time, they were seeing the increase of medical calls and fire calls, so they were looking to Butte-Silver Bow and Beaverhead because the Big Hole is the county line, and they wanted an agreement. And I think it was like $1 or $2 that this body authorized to go fund their fire department, and that's where the funding for the Wise River came from. Miss Gleason might correct me if I'm incorrect on that, because I think she was there then, but that's where that would have came from. So, Commissioner O'Neill, you had a question?
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. Appreciate the presentation. Director Osborne, so you have one assistant chief currently now?
Director Osborne.
Chairman Morgan, Commissioner O'Neill. Yeah, that's correct. We have an assistant chief who serves as my assistant chief, and he's the fire marshal for Butte-Silver Bow. One.
Commissioner O'Neill.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. So in the ordinance, the actual ordinance allows you to have more assistants. Is that correct? So you have the fire marshal, and then who's the assistants under that? Like, so basically the charter allows you to have so many within. So these aren't made up positions, if you will. You're not like trying to replicate anything other than, basically the charter speaks as you can have these positions, correct? Am I making sense?
Director Osborne.
Chair Morgan, Commissioner O'Neill. So the ordinance does state that within the Butte-Silver Bow Fire Department there is 2 assistant chiefs. One is the assistant chief fire marshal. The other one was, it was named the assistant chief of administration and operations or something. That position has not been filled, I believe, since like the 80s. But it is in the ordinance. It has not been filled for decades. The deputy fire marshal would that would be a totally new position, not in the ordinance, not in the charter. That would just be adding a position to our fire prevention bureau. But again, these are just possibles. If the outcome was, the 300 to 350, I'm just giving you guys what maybe we could do. Number one goal would be to give us flexibility with the cap, not use everything. But I hope I answered your question. Yes, there's 2 in the ordinance, nothing of the deputy fire marshal.
Follow-up, Commissioner O'Neill.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. I just want to go back to the Walkerville situation. As far as, I want to clarify, they do pay for emergency services? Just wanted to make sure you're there. Is that correct?
Director Osborne.
Chair and Commissioner O'Neill. Yes, it was always my understanding that Walkerville and Melrose paid into the emergency service tax, but not the fire fund. Unless I am totally misunderstanding something, but that's what I always understood, is they were paying into that because that tax is a county-wide tax, is what I was always was I was always told.
Commissioner Fisher, you had a follow-up?
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. Zach, Director Osborne, thank you for being here once again. In one of the slides there, you mentioned that if this took place, it would reduce the fire fund for everyone else paying into it. Is that correct?
Director Osborne.
Chair and Commissioner Fisher. I don't remember stating exactly that. What this would do for everyone else is equal out, I guess. What I meant, what I think the statement that you were referring to is maybe when I said that the people inside the fire fund are subsidizing for Montana Connections. They are paying into the fire fund. The fire fund is budgeting for their training, for their response. Their fire fund tax, I believe, would not be affected. Am I speaking correctly on that?
Director Hassler.
So, thank you, Chairman Morgan, Commissioner Fisher, members of council. There's really no way to know exactly how it would impact everybody because it's based on the taxable value and the number of mills that have to be levied to balance the budget. And so if your property value went up and somebody else's went down, and whatever their budget is, and we determine the number of mills, like it impacts everybody differently. So there's no way to determine that everybody else's tax for the urban fire district would go down and theirs would go up.
Okay. Follow-up, Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chairman. One more. Thank you, Director Hassler. One more question, I guess it was here. You stated, Director Osborne, that the fire marshal spends 100 hours per year at the connections. 100 hours per year seems like a small amount of hours to be spending on a facility that has that great a risk that you're expressing tonight. 100 hours is barely a month's worth of work for a man that works 40 hours a week. That kind of throws me. That seems like a small amount of time to requesting a couple more employees to assist with this. So I'm just questioning, 100 hours, is that the correct number?
Director Osborne.
Chairman Morgan, Commissioner Fisher, that is the correct number, 100%, and that's where the danger comes from. The amount of hours that he should be spending out there is substantially more because of the danger. I'm super glad you commented on that because when I had Fire Marshal Lee run his numbers for me, and that's what he came up with, I thought he was joking to me. But anytime you go into industrial area like that, it deserves many more hours.
Okay. Is there any other questions? Commissioner Mankins.
Thank you, Director Osborne, for coming and sharing that. And I would have to do a couple sentiments off of Commissioner Thatcher with the equity and fairness. I think it's about time that everybody is on that same page and paying into this urban fire fund. And I'm glad that Commissioner Fisher brought up that 100 hours because I was going to ask that same exact thing. And thank you, Director Osborne, by clarifying that shows the importance that we do need another position to help out in that. So hopefully everybody does keep this into consideration and to look moving forward that I would like to, moving forward with this, but kind of with Commissioner Thatcher said, we have to come back to this again. I mean, are we going to look at this again? And I mean, I know it's always nice to take baby steps with this, but this urban fire fund needs to be addressed from top to bottom. And I think we all understand that. So hopefully that everybody is listening, that should be something that we need to address from top to bottom in all of our districts to make sure that there is that equity and fairness throughout our community. So thank you for bringing that to our attention, Director Osborne. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Callahan.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. Chairman Morgan. Mr. Osborne, if you can go back to the page that said every citizen and every property owner pays emergency service funds. The property owners pay the emergency service fund through property taxes. How do the rest of them pay? People that aren't property owners pay that emergency service fund.
Director Hassler.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan, Commissioner Callahan, members of council. I just want to clarify the question. You're talking about people who potentially rent as opposed to, because when we tax somebody, they get taxed based on their taxable value of their property. And so if they're a property owner, then they would see that tax on their tax bill. And if they're not a property owner, I'm only assuming that's because they're a renter. Is that what you're referring to?
The
or?
page said that every person and every property owner pays emergency service fund. And I'm very well aware that every property owner gets assessed emergency service fund. But there's a high percentage of people that aren't property owners that page said pays emergency service fund.
Director Hassler.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan, Commissioner Callahan, members of council. Property owners are assessed the emergency, not every person.
Okay.
It's assessed on a property tax bill. So unless you're receiving a property tax bill, you wouldn't be assessed that tax.
Okay. I wanted to clarify that because the page did say every person, in your comments said every person and property owner.
Follow-up, Commissioner Callahan. You're good. Commissioner Callahan, is that another question?
That's good.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Commissioner O'Neill.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. Well, in theory, the person that's renting that pays the property owner, and he pays the tax, so kinda. Sorry, joking.
Commissioner Callahan.
All right. Okay, in theory, that sounds good, but when we were assessing the road fee, one property at Legion Oasis, they got charged one fee for the whole property. And is that the same possibility with this emergency service fund? Does Legion Oasis, with hundreds of renters, do they pay one fee as an emergency service fee?
Director Hassler.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan, Commissioner Callahan, members of council. That is a road maintenance fee. That is a fee that is assessed. We're talking about a tax, and the tax is based on the taxable value of the property. So if you own a big apartment complex or multifamily housing or duplexes, fourplexes, whichever, it's based on the taxable value of the property, not the number of people that are living there. So if you have a significant property that has lots of apartments, your taxable value is going to be higher. You're going to be assessed the number of, the tax that you're going to pay is based on the taxable value multiplied by the number of mills levied for emergency services.
Commissioner Callahan.
All right, because a lot of our properties don't have a taxable value because they're nonprofits and they don't pay a tax value. Is that my understanding?
Director Hassler.
Chairman Morgan, Commissioner Callahan, members of council, that is correct. I believe that they only pay for the fees that are assessed. So if you're a nonprofit, you pay for the street maintenance district, you pay for landfill, you pay for metro sewer because those are fees for services. This is a tax, so they would be exempt from that.
Dad.
Yeah, just
Ms.
sorry.
Gleason.
I don't mean to jump in here, but we haven't talked a lot about this in a long time. Karen and I haven't really had time to talk about it lately either, but before you, we talked a lot about these nonprofits paying payment in lieu of taxes. I think Chairman Morgan, you serve on a housing authority that used to pay a payment in lieu of taxes, but it's something that needs to be revisited again. I think many times the nonprofits come before you expressing that they will pay that, but then nobody sits at the table with them. And I'm as a fault as anybody. When I was here myself as the finance and budget director, we've met a few times with different entities, but never followed through on a contract to finalize that payment in lieu. But the housing authority used to pay on Silverbow homes for quite a while, a payment in lieu for fire services. And so I know they have come forward, and we had meetings before I had left to revisit that, and I think it's time again, now that we're talking about implementing this, to visit with those nonprofits and go back to the payment in lieu for fire and law enforcement. Those were kind of the big, when we did our assessment of it, they were big users of those services, but not paying for those services. So I think it's probably time to revisit it. Really quick, while I'm up here, if I have one more second, because I think Commissioner Fisher is also reading some of the charter and the municipal code language when he talked about offsetting, because you're going to see a lot of changes that need to take place in the municipal code that can't be followed today for one reason or another. And one was back in the original adoption, and I didn't get into all of it because I didn't want to have you sitting here for hours in the presentation, but back in 94 and in 98, when the ballot measure went to the voters to approve the 10 mil, there was an offset. So the whole intention was that those in the uniform fire district were going to be offset. So we were going to be able to levy. So what we did in the original years is that we looked at what 10 mils raised for emergency services, and we backed that off of the uniform fire district. That was in the original. So we were functioning different cap. It was called I-105. We were limited with a number of mills, but we went to the vote of the people to get this 10 mil put in so that we could go above, but then we did that offset calculation. Well, in 2003, when House Bill 124, the big bills came in that we talk about that implemented 1510, 420, and the budget caps and whatnot came in, all that went out the window because you can no longer do that. They changed our whole method and structure. And so I was talking to Deputy County Attorney Peterson just before the meeting, saying there's a lot of language in there that still needs to be cleaned up. That's kind of old legacy language, and why you're looking at it now, we should be cleaning up that because you can't comply with those regs because it doesn't meet 1510, 420. So I just want to mention that because if you look at some of the language you're seeing today, you're going to see that offset language. You pull some of these old resolutions up, you're going to see in the resolution when we went to the vote of the people that the intent was to offset those kind of things. Just wanted to mention that to you.
Commissioner O'Leary, you had a question?
Thank you, Chair Morgan. I can't remember exactly who asked the question, but I just pulled up tax bills from down by Wise River, and they are paying the emergency services, but not the fire fund. Same is true for Walkerville. Just wanted to talk about that.
Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chairman Moran. Thank you for the presentation. And we talked earlier about getting this resolution going. We moved this presentation from March 25th to March 11th, and it's talking about putting this on next week and getting the week after. I think it'd be really wise if we step back and let the TIFID people and the Montana Connections people review this a little bit and see what it's actually going to cost them, and see what it's going to do to the other things, like Ms. Gleason just said, with the county attorneys sorting out some of this stuff. I think it'd be wise to let this play out for a little while, 4 to 6 weeks or something, and then get a proper way to do this. I'm not against it. I just think it's one of these things that we want to review and let the public have input, let the Montana Connections businesses have input, and let's have a good conversation, a good discussion about this before we start wanting to write resolutions and getting things going. I think there's some things that has to be sorted out both legally and financially. Thank you.
Director Osborne, do you have a response?
Chair and Commissioner Fisher, it is a resolution of intent, so the public owners, property owners will have proper time for public hearings.
Kind of along those lines, Commissioner Fisher, so the TED board or whatever board you're going to be sending this to, just keep in mind that they're the advisory board, which I get, so it would be more for informational purposes only. They in theory wouldn't be taking action on approving or denying this. That would be the role of this body to do it, so it would be just for informational purposes only on that side. And then with a resolution, there would be a public hearing that the members of the public would be able to come before us and state their pro or against as well. So, Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan, and I do agree with that. And not so much about the TED board. I'd like to hear a little bit from the individual businesses that are going to be affected by this. You know, the TED board is a board that's the TED board. You know, we understand that, what they do. But I would like to hear from people, the CEOs of these companies, that we've lured in here into this connections deal with the idea that they're going to make a business fly out here. And I'll just tell you, as I repeated earlier, business is a little tough right now. Fuel is high and transportation, and you know, there's a lot of things going on, and I just think it'd be penny wise and pound foolish to hear from the people that got to pay the bill rather than the people that are, you know, wanting to collect the money. I'm not against it. I'm just saying proceed cautiously. Thank you.
Commissioner Callahan.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. I agree, Mr. Fisher, you're 100% right. We got to get this right with the people that are involved in this area. They should have a right to come up here and acknowledge, you know, I've heard here many, many times by multiple commissioners up here, fair share. How do you determine fair share? If you go back and check your logbook and see how many times you guys go out there, you said you spend 100 hours just evaluating their property. I can assure you a place like ASME has a safety team that is at the very top of their game on all the stuff they need just to be able to hold insurance. So, you know, I don't think we should downplay these places of being unsafe. I can't imagine a place like ASME being unsafe and getting away with it because it's too much of a risk, and the insurance companies don't insure companies that are high risk. But I want to add one more thing about the fairness and everybody pay equal. The comments I made on some of these housing projects, they don't pay at all, and you can assure everybody in here. Some of them you go daily or multiple times a day. I question why we're not looking into getting some more out of those as well.
Commissioner Thatcher, you had a question?
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. I don't have any issues with the businesses coming up and stating their piece. I guess we don't give that opportunity necessarily to every business in Butte. Like, hey, I don't want to be taxed this either. I mean, that's not an option. So I guess I don't really understand it. I get that we want their input, but again, if we're responding to a fire out there, I recognize that REC certainly has safety protocols in place, but it's a high, like you said, a high risk business. Like there are things that could most certainly go wrong out there as well, and I think we have to take into consideration that. My question though is just quickly. I'm perfectly fine with the business owners being notified. I just have a question, Director Osborne. So the resolution that you plan to put forth, I would assume is going to have just the boundary expansion into Montana Connections. What is your timeline, I guess? Like, is this something that you'd like done? I mean, or, you know, like what's it look like down the road? You know, what's the timeline on this?
Director Osborne.
Chair Morgan and Commissioner Thatcher, it's on my phone, but Danette Gleason has it memorized in her head, so I'm going to turn that over to her.
Ms. Gleason.
Not sure that I have it totally memorized date by date in my head, but Karen and I and Fire Chief Osborne, Director of Fire Service Osborne, had went through kind of a timeline in order to make it on the tax rolls, meet the obligations and the requirements of Department of Revenue to hit the tax rolls. So just to make sure everybody understands, the first resolution, and Deputy County Attorney Peterson can jump in here too, but the first resolution is a resolution of intent, only a resolution of intent to possibly change the boundaries. So the reason why, it's kind of even an extra step you're doing here, because you could just kind of start with ordinance changes and hold your public hearings and be on your way. This is another extra step. This is an extra step to give more time for people to come forward, businesses to come forward, have discussion, give Zach time to go out, meet with individuals and kind of talk about, you know, why and the processes and whatnot. But the first resolution of intent refers to the 18th to the council, but then goes to judiciary and sits in judiciary, and hopefully the judiciary committee will set that public hearing that everybody's wanting to have right now and have that public comment and hold that public hearing. And then after that, the next step with the public hearing is then, if you're ready to come forward, then you come forward with the ordinance changes, which then again require more public hearings, 2 readings, and then the adoption. So you're pushing your timeline to the end of June to even kind of get through some of the public hearings and the processes and the adoptions of the ordinances. And then if you hit the June 30th, middle of June 30th adoption timeline of the ordinances, then you got 30 days of waiting period to have the finalization of the ordinance. And then you're at the Department of Revenue's timeline, because they need to know that, because they're going to want to certify taxable values for you by the first Monday of August. And so in order for you to meet your budget timeline too and get the certified values by Department of Revenue, you kind of have, if you really want to do a resolution of intent and have a series of public hearings, then you kind of have to start working on it now. And then give the opportunity for people to come before you and have those conversations too on what's going on. So, sorry I didn't have the dates. We went through it all. We had the dates all ready for you, and I didn't grab a copy of it either, but.
Okay. Any other questions? Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. This may be a question for you, my friend. When it comes to the 2/3 vote, is that on the resolution itself, or is that actually on the resolution of intent?
I would bring that to our deputy county attorney. Commissioner Fisher?
Point of clarification, please.
Oh, go ahead.
The resolution of intent would be introduced, okay? And then does that got to pass by 2/3, or that's just majority vote? And then it goes to the resolution where it have to have 2/3 vote, or would that be after when it goes to the ordinance change? Because it states in here, any ordinance changing boundaries of existing fire district or relocating fire equipment shall require an affirmative vote by 2/3 of the whole number of the council of commissioners. Beyond the ordinance, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Oh, Commissioner Mankins.
So, thank you, Chair Morgan. Does that satisfy everybody with the timeline once we go through that? I mean, that was a good, that was resolution timeline. I mean, that seems to be quite a bit of time for the public and everybody to hear. Hopefully that is. I mean, not that you can speak for anyone, but I mean, that seems to be, I mean, if we were looking March, April, May, June, July, and have to be there August, so just thinking.
Chief Executive Gallagher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. That's one of the things is why we're at the time that we are right now. And last year, if you remembered when we started to have this discussion, we realized that we were going to run up against a timeline that we would not meet the state's Department of Revenue's timelines to be able to get this passed at that time. So that's why we're at the pace that we're at now. And this really does give us, you know, if you look at it, this will draw out almost until end of July, you know, the later part of July. And if there's any bumps on the road, we're still pressing up against it. And so this does give an opportunity, and that's what we felt as we did this. There's been a lot of discussion of why the boundaries and everything, and Montana Connections. Now, just to kind of clarify on that, why Montana Connections? It's, as he said, the highest impact area that requires the most training, the most resources out there, and it also has the biggest impact. And so the other outlying areas, I think that, you know, you as commissioners are going to hear a lot from them as well. I think that there was discussion when the 10 mil was done at a time that was kind of a concession, that not moving the full fire district out there, because a lot of the rural fire felt that, you know, even with the response that they would have and know that have to send out that amount of resources, a lot of times the fire would not be able, they would be there more of just to make sure of mopping up, but not be able to protect a structure. So I don't disagree. I mean, when we talk about this, but there was a lot of discussion on what was the best move for the community. But this body, if choosing wants to move forward with the expansion of the district to cover those that are not covered, then that could be taken into consideration. But there was a lot of consideration when we were looking at this. So,
Okay. Any other questions? All right, Commissioner O'Leary.
Thank you, Chair Morgan. I just wanted to say, if you could send us a copy of I was looking for the fire district map online. I can't find it. So if you could send us a copy of that and maybe the presentation, that'd be great.
Okay. Yep. Any other questions, comments? Commissioner Callahan.
Thank you, Chairman Moore. I guess I do have one request, if I could. As I said, it's been brought up multiple times, pay their fair share. Is there any chance that you could come up with numbers on what these people do pay in the emergency service fund? And so we gotta, we hear pay their fair share, but what is their fair share? What's anybody's fair share? It's assessed on 10 mills and property value. And a lot of them properties are valued very high.
Director Hassler.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan, Commissioner Callahan, members of council. Can you clarify, are you talking about just the people in the Montana Connections,
The
what
area
they
affected.
pay in the
Yes.
emergency?
Yes,
Okay,
please.
yes,
Thank
we
you.
can do that.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Last call. All right, thank you, Director Osborne, for the presentation. We look forward to that resolution. Moving on to Section 2, Communications. Communication 2025-5A1. Will O'Connor, Land Records Coordinator, requesting Council Commissioners to approve Council Communication 25-249, a request from Patty and Chris Salmonson to purchase land owned by Butte-Silver Bow located adjacent to the property located at 17 Tullamore Street. This has been an ongoing communication on the agenda, but I'm proud to say that there was action on this communication last week, so we could cross-reference this communication with 26104 and place on file. Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to cross-reference communication number 2025-581 with communication number 2026-104 and place on file.
Okay, there's been a motion made and seconded to cross-reference with communication 26104 and place on file. Is there anything on the question? Would everyone please vote? Mr. O'Leary? Yep. Would anyone like to change their vote? Would the clerk please record the vote?
11 yea, 0 nay.
Thank you. Motion passes. Number 2, Communication 25-587, Bill Kelly, 403 Transit Street, Butte, Montana, requesting Council Commissioners authorization to purchase parcel 000-190-4920 that is directly bordering my property for improved maintenance, utilization, and management of the area. You will take a look that this communication has been on the agenda as well, but there is a subsequent communication that the Land Sales Committee is looking at, which is Communication 2026-93. So they will be taking action on that one and not this communication since this is included. So we could cross-reference this with Communication 2693 and place on file. Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. I'd like to make a motion to cross-reference communication number 2025-587 with communication number 2026-93 and place on file.
Okay, there's been a motion made and seconded to cross-reference Communication 2693 and place on file. Is there anything on the question? Would everyone please vote? Would anyone like to change their vote? Would the clerk please record the vote?
11 yea, 0 nay.
Thank you. Motion passes. Number 3, Communication 2618, Kelly Sullivan, BLDC Executive Director, requesting Council Commissioners' permission to schedule a presentation on March 4th, 26th regarding the BLDC's recently completed 5-year strategic plan. Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. I'd like to make a motion to place on file communication number 2026-18.
Okay, there's been a motion made and seconded to place communication 2026-18 on file. Is there anything on the question? Would everyone please vote? Anyone like to change their vote? Would the clerk please record the vote?
11 yea, 0 nay.
Thank you. Motion passes. Number 4, communication 2663, Mark Neary, Public Works Director, requesting Council of Commissioners permission to schedule a public hearing on March 4th, 26 for the purpose of soliciting comments on the final drought management plan. A resolution will be submitted after the public hearing. We did hold the public hearing last week, so Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. I'd like to make a motion to place communication number 2026-63 on file.
Thank you. There's been a motion made and seconded to place communication 2663 on file. Is there anything on the question? Would everyone please vote? Commissioner Boyle, anybody like to change their vote? Would the clerk please record the vote?
11 yea, 0 nay.
Thank you. Motion passes. Number 5, communication 2664. Mark Neary, Public Works Director, requesting Council Commissioners permission to schedule a bid opening on February 25th, 26th for the hot mix for the Butte-Silver Roads Department. Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. I'd like to make a motion to place communication number 2026-64 on file.
Been a motion made and seconded to place communication 2664 on file. Is there anything on the question? Would everyone please vote? Would anyone like to change their vote? Would the clerk please record the vote?
11 yea, 0 nay.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes. Number 6, communication 2677, Mark Neary, Public Works Director, requesting Council of Commissioners permission to schedule a bid opening on February 25th, 26th for the 26th Road Division Mill and Fill Project. Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. I'd like to make a motion to place communication number 2026-77 on file.
Okay, there's been a motion made and seconded to place communication 2677 on file. Is there anything on the question? Would everyone please vote? Commissioner Callahan. Anyone like to change their vote? Would the clerk please record the vote?
11 yea, 0 nay.
Thank you. Motion passes. Communication number 7, 2693, Bill Kelly, 403 Walkerville, Montana, requesting Council of Commissioners approval to purchase 3 parcels of land for improved maintenance, utilization, and management of the area, which is directly bordering the property that he currently owns, parcel number 1904920, 1903480, and 1904910. We'll continue to hold that in abeyance pending a report back from the Land Sales Committee. Number 8, communication 2699, Karen Malogny, Butte-Silver Officer, requesting Council of Commissioners permission to schedule a public hearing on March 18th for the purpose of amending the fiscal year 26 budget to support the purchase of land equipment for family planning, utilizing grant funding from the Bridge Care via the Sample Foundation. We'll continue to hold that in abeyance pending the public hearing on March 18th. Number 9, communication 26102, Robert Farron, Butte, Montana, requesting Council Commissioners approval to purchase a parcel of land within the city limits of Butte-Silver, which has been taken back by the county on multiple occasions for back taxes. We'll continue to hold that in abeyance pending the report back from the Land Sales Committee. Number 10, 26100, Karen Malogny, Butte-Silver Health Officer, requesting Council of Commissioners permission to schedule a public hearing on March 18th, 26th for the purpose of amending the fiscal year 26 budget to support HIV prevention services, delivery of HIV treatment, outreach and support, viral hepatitis and HIV services. We'll continue to hold this in abeyance pending the March 18th public hearing. Number 11, Communication 26106, Zach Osborne, Fire Services Director, requesting Council of Commissioners permission to schedule a presentation on March 11th, 26th regarding the future inclusion of the Montana Connections area into the urban fire district. Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. I'd like to make a motion to place communication number 2026-106 on file.
Thank you. There's been a motion made and seconded to place communication 26106 on file. Is there anything on the question? Would everyone please vote? Would anyone like to change their vote? Would the clerk please record the vote?
11 yea, 0 nay.
Thank you. Motion passes. Number 12, Communication 26107, Aubrey Japp, BSB Public Archives Director, requesting Council of Commissioners permission to schedule a presentation on March 25th, 26 regarding the Archives 25 Annual Report. We'll continue to hold that in abeyance pending the presentation on March 25th. Communication number 13, 26113, Karen Hassler, Finance and Budget Director, requesting Council of Commissioners permission to schedule a presentation on March 18th, 2026 to present the fiscal year 25 annual comprehensive financial report schedule of federal awards, audit findings, and related audit opinions. We'll continue to hold this in abeyance pending the presentation on March 18th. Next item on tonight's agenda is any public comment on any public matter not on the agenda. If there's any member of the public to speak on any item not on the agenda, now would be your opportunity.
Reddy Frost, 2000 Roberts Avenue. So as I was perusing this, I saw the communication about the presentation on the Butte Archives. And what a beautiful building. I was just in there earlier today, actually right before coming here so was your dad actually, Russell. But I was there for an event put on by Wild Montana relating to the rescinding of the roadless rules for the Forestry Service. And I'm really curious as to what our Parks and Rec director and department think about the rescinding of that rule, as well as all of you folks. So I thought I'd publicly ask. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other member of the public that would like to speak on any item on tonight's agenda?
Council of Commissioners, I'm Cindy Sherman, Clerk and Recorder. I'm here to speak about my decision to cancel the local portion of the primary election. This is a difficult timing issue. The filing period ended on March 4th, and in order to put a communication on the agenda, I would have had to do that by February 27th. So unfortunately, if you guys want to make a change in my decision, then you will have to hold a special meeting, and I'm sorry about that. So my decision, so there were 8 elected positions up for election this year. There's Commissioner District 1, 2, 7, 9, 10, and 11. There's also a coroner position and Justice Court 1. When the filing period ended on March 4th, there were 4 contested races with 2 candidates each. The other 4 races are uncontested. This does not fulfill the requirements needed for me to be required to hold a primary election. The statute in Montana Code annotated 13-14-115 allows me as the election administrator to cancel the election. The governing body can uncancel the election by resolution, but that resolution needs to be done by next Monday, March 5th or 16th, sorry. I do want to clarify to the public that I am not canceling the primary election. I cannot do that. Just the local portion of the primary election, due to the fact that every single candidate will move on to the general election. There will still be a primary election with the federal and state races. The primary is generally used to narrow the candidates down to 2 candidates in the race or in each race for the general election. In this case, every single candidate will move on to the general election. There were some changes in the law this year that the uncontested races will not be on the ballot either way. The rules, they made some changes about what did and did not need to be on the ballot to try to, a lot of it had to do with spacing issue. Our ballots are getting long, which becomes very expensive. So when we're having to go on to back sides and second and third, fourth pages on an election, that gets very expensive for the election administrator and our county budgets. So this is my first large election. I have 3 elections going on right now. Between May and June, I have a very large school election. I also have a small water sewer district election that is complicated. And then the primary election. So when I was told that I could cancel this portion of the election, and when I talked to other election officials, the answer was, why wouldn't you? So my decision was based on increased costs on ballot layout. ES&S charges by races and by number of candidates. This is probably, in the grand scheme, not a huge cost increase, but I have to factor in my tight budget. Elections are very expensive, and I have to stay within my budget. So the cost of ES&S services just for the 2024 primary election was almost $64,000. And I expect it'll be at least that amount this time, so any added cost is going to cause constraints to my budget. Also, there is additional time and staff needed, election judges, in adjudicating resolution board ballots. These are the ballots that the tabulator spits out because it can't read them, and so then they have to go in front of the resolution board to decide how a voter was, to decide a voter's intent on how they wanted to vote. So that takes extra time, and also, especially because these are local commissioner district races, all 4 of them are commissioner district races. These are pretty small elections. I mean, even compared to what a county race would be. So there is a higher risk of needing to do a recount, which all of you guys, or most of you guys, know that falls onto you now. So that is a decision you guys need to make. If there is a recount, you guys will be involved in that. So there will be 7 ballot styles involved. Commissioner District 1 has 1 ballot style. Commissioner District 7 has 1 ballot style. 9 has 3, and 11 has 2. But because it's a primary election, there's 3 ballots per ballot style. So that's 21 ballots that we have to add a race to, which is extra cost. So you do need to take that into consideration. These are my reasons for why I decided to cancel the election. I by no means am meaning to cause any kind of mistrust in our elections. I will happily leave this decision up to you guys. I will be there at the special meetings should you guys choose to have one, and I'm happy to answer any questions then or in the meantime before then. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other comments on any item that's not on tonight's agenda? Okay, seeing none, I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
Just really quick, Commissioner Morgan, are you waiting just till after we adjourn to get everybody's point on that?
Yeah, we can't have a discussion on it.
Okay,
at the
so
meeting.
just as a reminder for that, okay?
Yep.
Then I would like to make a motion to adjourn.
Commissioner Fisher?
Just a couple friendly amendments. I will not be here next week. The